What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Simple Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Quincy Forte, and this is my co-host and very intelligent brother, producer, Mr. Remon. What's up, man?
I don't know. You kind of putting it on there. And now I feel a little bit of pressure to say something intelligent.
Speak your truth, man. Speak your truth.
No, man, just staying busy, man. Just been out here grinding, been out here working. Outside and opened up a little bit more than it has been in the past few weeks. So started getting back out here, started filming a little bit and, back editing. So just trying to stay busy on my side. How about yourself, man?
Good. And so before I go into my how I'm doing, like you said, opened up a little bit. I think a little bit is an understatement at this point. It is June the 15th, and in Texas, like we've seen stats of pre-pandemic outings, bars that are in East Texas having concerts. I saw a country concert where people were mosh pitting. I watched a YouTube video this morning from, I think, CNN or one of those things where they were talking about tourism in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and how hotels are filling up to pre-pandemic capacities. Everybody's going to the beach. So you say a little bit, and I say that people have since forgotten that there's a pandemic. We have rising cases everywhere. Tarrant County reported a record high. Dallas County reported a record high of new cases. And they say it's because of testing. I partially agree that the more testing available, more new cases that you're going to have. But I can't help but attribute it to also being able to go out to a public bar and get smashed and forget completely about social distancing.
Yep. I agree.
So I mean, with that, what's been going on this week? It's been a week since we recorded. Man, not much. I mean, we still haven't ventured out. Like, I've been going out still just to get the groceries, and we've discovered all the click list pickup things to where at first I was like, I actually love going into the store, meeting my local grocer, saying what's up, them knowing me, them knowing that I'm frequently in the store. But then I realized that I only like doing that at one store, and that's the Tum Thum by my house. All the other stores, I have no personality. I'm in and out. Like two of the stores that I've been, like, people probably don't even know me, and I could have gone in there 3 or 4 times in one day. They're just so large retailers. And so I'm perfectly happy with doing a click to pick up, and I just got to open either the back hatch in Ashley's car, or I got to just say, hey, throw it in the back seat of my car. And I hit the button on the app and say, yeah, I'm here. All right, peace. I think that's probably the way I'm going to operate from now on, even
like this. This is how I roll from now on. Like, I don't have any interest on interacting with these grocery stores like that.
I mean, it's great, but then on the flip side, like that personal interaction that I do get at the store that I like going to, it's really funny because now I'm getting that personal interaction with whoever brings the groceries out. Like, we have those how you doing neighborly type conversations. So I think maybe I'm getting what I wanted out of the whole predicament. So, and without having to walk in and be seen around a bunch of people, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because like I guess I have my set places that I kind of go to that I frequent kind of often, so people are kind of used to seeing me. Like I say, like since I've been getting around a little bit more, moving around a little bit more, for a long time I haven't seen these people, so it's kind of like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, how you doing?
Oh yeah, that's fair. No, that's 100% fair. Have you done the click list thing before, or
No.
any kind of grocery pickup app and any of that stuff?
No, not yet.
To well, and especially having two kids, I think it'll be a game changer even once everybody's
Really.
out and about. Yeah, just because like literally picking up from school or whatever event, like you can just make your grocery order and then just go have them throw it in the bag. But again, I was completely against it just because I liked the physicality, the walking in, the touching things, but it works perfectly if you're not trying to waste a bunch of time. Like you just need
Mm-hmm.
all these things on your grocery list. The
Mm-hmm.
only frustrating thing about it now is the fact that like if they're out of stuff, like you oftentimes don't know until it's time to pay for your order. Or like you got to substitute stuff that they don't have, and like we're kind of specific about the stuff that we buy.
Right.
So if they don't have it, we're just like no substitution, and then I've ended up having to go get it from the store anyway, from a
Right.
different store. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, it's cool, man. Dad life. Dad life. Oh man. So how do you feel the situation has sort of leveled off with regards to kind of the racial tension and stuff that's been going on recently?
um, I don't know. I like because I've been kind of like for the past week or so, I've kind of unplugged
Hmm.
a lot. Um, just because, just for my own little personal sanity. Because you kind of get in the habit of watching it all day, every day. And you feel yourself kind of you feel yourself getting enraged at it. You know what I mean? And it's hard to maintain your peace of mind and stuff like that. So I've kind of unplugged a little bit, so I haven't been paying as much attention to it. Um, so I would hope that, honestly, I think like they can't go on protesting much longer.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like by the end of the summer, people will have been kind of moved on a little bit from it. Um, I think things are getting better, but it's hard to say.
No, that's fair. I haven't unplugged, but I also have seen kind of a little less of a wave of um, that first push that we had where everybody's sharing historical moments. They're sharing um, the posts. They're saying doing the say their name, and they're going to the rallies and stuff like that. They're educating themselves, or there's a focus on deeper education within the Black community for others outside of the Black community. So
Hmm.
um, I haven't seen that wave continue to flow. I see sprinkles here and there where it was resounding at one point. Um, but I do see blips in the news about kind of
Hmm.
legislation changes
Right,
and
yeah, yeah. Like the one
administrative stuff.
yeah, like that's one thing that I have seen is like they passed the the legislation against the no knock warrant, you know,
Hmm.
in case of Breonna Taylor. And then I think they passed like one for Eric Gardner, which is
Hmm.
the guy who, they out in Staten Island, who they choked to death, who was the original, I can't breathe. um, he was the original one who said I can't breathe. So
That's the
I think they passed a law.
LeBron shirt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think they passed a law, and I think they included his name in that in New York this past week. So those are the things that I have seen, because a lot of the reasons why, and I kind of figured this, but to hear somebody else say it was kind of like confirmation for me. And that is that a lot of the reasons why why it's so hard to get these officers convicted, it's because
Yeah.
there's no law against what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically like, yeah, what they did was enough to get them fired. Well, because it was like a fireable offense, but it's not an offense to get them arrested, right? Or it's not enough to convict them on. So having these laws in place and having actual legislation on the books that makes it illegal for these officers to do these things, then we can start getting some convictions.
Yeah, very true.
But I think, and I want to ask you this, like you said, you haven't seen as much activity in terms of like the initial push that you saw. How much of that do you attribute that to the fact that outside is opened up a lot more? Because, you know, I think we spoke on this. One of the reasons why that kind of hit so hard, the death of George Floyd kind of hit so hard, is because everybody was slowed down. So, you know, you pay attention to it a little bit more. But now, beaches opened up, they can go back to the bars and everything like that. So it's not, now they have other distractions from, the Black Lives Matter movement or George Floyd's death or whatever. So now they have these other distractions. I think that kind of plays into why people aren't paying as much attention to it. Like,
Oh no,
what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the distraction thing is very huge. And instead of people being introspective, and sitting and dealing with themselves, in times like these, and especially if you have um, a way or an outlet, or you've been cooped up for so long, you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of want to get out. And so it's kind of like, once like that floodgates open, it's like, hey, I'm here to protest. Wait, they're having happy hour? Like, you can go here, there's a
Right,
concert over here.
right.
It's like, let me put this picket sign down real quick, and I'll pick it up once the bars close back again. Because
Mm-hmm.
now I have a way to, I'm not saying that everybody does this, but I have a way to drown out my sorrows, worries, fears, and stuff like that, and forget.
Because it's heavy, you know what I mean? And I think one of the biggest, people say, Christianity is the biggest religion in America. I disagree. I think the biggest religion in America is escapism. You know what I'm saying? Like, people
Mm,
love to escape from, um, you know, personal accountability and personal responsibility. They love the distractions, the big shiny things that kind of get them away from, like you said, going inside and being introspective. And I don't think that people love doing that work on themselves and on the world around them. So anytime a distraction comes up, they kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna put this to the side. I'll get back to it later. But I'm gonna go have fun for a little while because it's heavy. You know what I mean? And most people don't like that heaviness.
it was a great distraction. Have you watched the Chappelle 846?
I have.
Oh my goodness. Like, the fact that Chappelle,
I
and if you
love Chappelle, by the way.
yeah, Chappelle is like one of my all-time favorites, and like even from like his old the Goofy movies, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, like,
Mm-hmm.
Nutty Professor, like, I mean,
Yeah.
that is just genius. But at the same time, he said literally, hey, we're gonna talk about this. He's like, I got some, I'm not gonna say the word, but he's like, I got some jokes that are just
Right.
dumb. He's like, we can do it. He's like, but I'd rather we talk about this heavy stuff because it's a
Right.
conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah. Yeah.
threw some punchlines out there, right? Like, went in on Candace Owens.
Yeah.
Um, but like after it, like, you can feel his passion and his intensity.
Mm-hmm.
And to say that he's not a kind of other people, like Dave Chappelle is known to just pop up in random places and not want notoriety for
Mm-hmm.
whatever he does or whatever he says until he wants the spotlight pointed on him. And
Right.
then he kind of takes control of the spotlight. But like, no, I thought it was genius, man. It was great.
It's almost like he doesn't like the spotlight until he's on stage.
Hmm.
Like outside of being on stage, he kind of like shies away. Like the man lives in Ohio. like, like what superstar at that level, you know what I'm saying, at Dave Chappelle's level is going to live in the Midwest? Like most of them you see living in Hollywood. But, Dave Chappelle is one of my top 3 comedians of all time.
Yeah.
But one of my top 3 favorite comedians of all time. So, I'll anytime he comes out, anytime he drops something, I'm glued to it. I'm on it.
Yeah, and I can't believe. I mean, like literally, I was watching some Gary Owen was talking about it, and he was like, "Man, I don't even watch comedy shows like that." He was like, "But he was like, it was almost 30 minutes, and it felt like 2 minutes, like just how you get through it, right?"
And even like I was watching an interview with D.L. Hughley earlier, and like he was saying, he was like, "Yo, I've never seen Dave Chappelle do a bad comedy special."
Mm-hmm. Even stuff that goes over people's heads, like you have to watch it again, and then you're like, "Oh snap, I missed that," or I wasn't tuned into something like low key. So,
and I wonder because that looks like, because Dave Chappelle is kind of known for getting on stage and just talking for 2 hours. So I wonder like how much of that, if I wonder if that was just like a 20-minute clip of a 2-hour stand-up that he did, and we might see the rest of it later at some point, or if that's it.
no.
But,
So I think that, like, I mean, from all, like, unless they were just taking pictures, I think there was a lot of comedians there, and he kind of made a night of it. And then when it was time for him to do his thing, like, I think he had this specific thing that he wanted to do. And then I almost wonder, I'm like, was there even anything written in the notebook, or was the notebook a prop? Because he would open it, but not fast enough to read. And I'm like, what did he like draw smiley faces in there? Like, I want to know what was in the notebook.
No, I think there was probably like some bullet points of some things that he wanted to touch on, like he mentioned the whole police officer that pulled him over and then shot somebody the next night. So I think there was like bullet points in there that he wanted to touch on, but I don't think that he wrote like entire jokes in there.
Yeah. It's just interesting, man. I'd love to get my hands on any of Dave Chappelle's notebooks.
Oh, and real quick, there's a comedy special on Amazon Prime that you might enjoy. TK Kirkland. I enjoyed it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Who Raised You?
Okay.
Check that out.
All right. TK Kirkland's like the OG. He doesn't really do much. So
he's involved in every major event that's happened since the 80s.
interesting. All right. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. But all right, so in the interest of time, let's get to kind of today's topic. I mean, it's pretty spot on with a little bit of what we've been talking about, and especially with the Chappelle piece. And it's just this idea of kind of entitlement, and if we're born entitled, or if it's kind of a trait that's displayed to us, and so we inherit this idea of entitlement. And so it goes back to playing games again, and it's kind of our thing that we do together. And now we're playing Minecraft, which, like I said, the game's been out for forever. I used to watch people play it, and I'm like, dude, this is so dumb. Like, why are you? It's a bunch of blockheaded people, and you're digging in the ground, and I didn't get it. So, um, uh, the game has survived time, and now it's like full circle, and now Andrew's into it, and so we've been playing it, and like you can do all kinds of things. You can kill sheep and stuff like that, and get lamb meat. You can milk the cows. I fed chickens, and then I like made them follow me into a coop. And now every time I feed them, they either have eggs or babies.
Yeah.
So it's just like crazy. And then you end up cooking the chickens because I have a smoker outside my house too. So it's just crazy. But so I built this house that's like um in like a dirt hill or whatever, and I put like a little bed, and like I have treasure chests where I keep my belongings, because every time you get attacked by a zombie,
Hmm.
and you have to respawn, like all your stuff is gone, like your whole inventory. And so um you have to go back and find where you were killed at, and then like go get all your stuff that's still there. But
Yeah.
likely the zombie is still there too. So you're gonna have
Okay.
to fight with no weapons because all your stuff is out of your hand, and try and get your stuff back.
Right.
So it's a pain. But so I built my house, and it's my front. It's where I go back to, and I'm like, hey, it's getting dark outside. I don't want these zombies to get me. I'm gonna go back to my house. Uh,
Yeah.
Andrew builds a house, um, and then he decides, you know what? I'm gonna build another house. And I'm like, yo, man, you need one front. You need to go back to a certain spot, build your house, and do all that stuff. He's like, but why? He's like, I got extra materials. I can build a bed right here. I'm just gonna build another house right here. It's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay in my house because it's become my thing. This is my plot, my property.
Right.
Um, and like, so he has this detached mentality from it, to where he doesn't see it as his one place, like his plot of land. This is what he's grown up to look forward to. And I have this sense of settlement and settling down in a video game, so much so that he came to my house one day, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna mine this wall, and just start like axing at the wall. And I'm like, yo, what are you doing? You about to
Yeah.
break me? You can't come into my house and break up stuff. And he's like, but why? And I was like, because it's my house. Um, but then, like, as it like every day we play, I think about it more, and I'm like, yo, why am I getting so emotional about a digital house that as soon as the game or the world gets erased from the Switch, like I'm not gonna have any attachment to anymore. Like I'm not gonna dream about this one house in the dirt, that I
Right.
built.
Right.
Um, and so it's just interesting. And then I see him, who's like free spirited, and he's like, oh, that's cool. He's like, that house is still there. And dude, so he has like three houses like everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I'm like, dude, like, you have this other house that's over here. Like, all you gotta do is put a bed in there, you can live there. He has one underground, and he's like talking about building another one. He's like, I can have a house wherever I want. And his reasoning for building his new house is because there was a chicken close to there. He wanted to make the chicken his pet. So he's like, well, it's easier for me to build a pen right here because the chicken's already right here. And then I'll build a house around it, and I'll be good. And I'm like, no, just make the chicken go back to the other house and stuff like that. And so, just that idea of kind of entitlement, to where I get so emotional. And I think it's the same thing in the real world, like where we bought this house, and like, come hell or high water, like nobody's going to take this house because we've worked so hard for this, or we've put so
Hmm.
much, sweat equity into it.
Hmm.
Um, but in reality, like think of how absurd it is. Like we live in a planet that nobody owns the planet, nobody owns the air, the sky, and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
we claim to own these little blocks of land. Like when it's like, well, who owns the earth? Like we're paying mortgages, and we're feeling threatened by financial institutions just because of how the system's set up, but nobody owns the earth. Like nobody has the lease to be like, yo, everybody on the earth is paying me for all this stuff, and I'm the one singular like landlord. So
Hmm.
it's just interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, my initial thought is, are these any of the houses that he robbed the bank for to pay for?
Oh no, the bank was in real
that
life.
was a completely
Um,
different house. Okay.
no, yeah, the bank was in real life, and it was with his actual toys.
Okay.
Um, with this game, like there was no robbing.
Okay.
Well, he did go, like we built our house next to this village, And so he did go and break all the
Mm,
villagers' houses and stole their beds and actually stole their doors off their house so he could use for his house. So he did pillage a village
got it.
so that he could get stuff for his house.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I mean, I guess it's okay as long as it's coming from a legitimate need, I guess. Um,
The villagers got ate by zombies, so it's all good.
okay, nobody's around to say anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, like in it's funny because you say, nobody owns the earth, and who owns this little fighting over it kind of reminds me of, what goes on in certain parts of the country in terms of, gang violence,
Mm.
and how people are fighting over neighborhoods that they don't own, right? And it's like, you can't come to my neighborhood, and it's like, yeah, but you don't own it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you've staked your claim on something that doesn't really belong to you,
Right.
um, and doesn't really belong to anybody. But then, like you say, the system is set up a certain way. It's kind of like, how, if the government or developers wanted to come in and move people out so they could build a mall in this neighborhood, you know, um, you got a lot of people, maybe they lived in the neighborhood for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they're like, I don't want to move. This is my house. And those people couldn't, like, the government could come in and still file eminent domain and move you out of your house anyway.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's, I mean, it's funny how the system is set up, but in terms of entitlement, I think one of the questions that you asked was like, is it something that comes inherent to us,
Right.
or if it's something that is a learned behavior? And I think it's a little bit of both, right? Um, like, I think inherently, once we think something is ours, like, it's ours, and we kind of hold on to it for dear life. Like, you see that even in babies. Like, if you try to take something, like a baby is holding something in their hand, and you try to take it from them, they'll snatch it back. Like, this is mine. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that's not something that you taught them. That's not something that anybody taught them. It's just something that comes inherent. But I think that even though it's something that is inherently in all of us, I think you can learn out of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can learn how not to have that sense of entitlement. Be, Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I want to challenge you on the inherent piece, just because, like you said, that so babies think, they say it's mine, but then how much of that is it's mine because you, as the adult, try and grab something away from them that they get their hands on, like, and you're just like no, and then when you say no, or when people say no, they typically clutch things back or shelter them away. Um, and so I'd still argue that that could still be learned behavior because like they're still soaking up kind of what you're doing and what you're showing.
Mm, mm. Um, I don't know. Like, personally, I think that at that age, they're not thinking that far ahead.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, at that point, it's kind of like a reaction. You know what I mean? And, um, I think at a certain age now, yeah, absolutely, they're kind of like a sponge, and they're just soaking up all, like, everything, all the behavior that's going on around them, and all of the things that's going on around them. But at such a small age, like at Marley's age, for example, like, she's not thinking that far and try to snatch it back. She's like, this is mine. I had
Yeah.
it first. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But um again, it's one of those things where I think you can learn how not to be. As you get older and you kind of get a little bit of life experience, you kind of realize that nobody owes you anything. And you know, whatever is yours, you kind of have to hold it with a loose grip, because things come, they're here today and gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? So you can't afford to get married to whatever it is you have in your hand. You kind of have to hold it with an open hand.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, people have, I mean, and part of that's kind of ego too,
Yeah.
just because you have a hard time letting go, and especially when you don't have, like we talked about, like the ability to kind of be introspective and sit with self. You don't even know who you are, and so you kind of seek things to sort of validate validate your being ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we see it in culture, with things and houses and all that stuff. So part of the ego, and especially like me not wanting to lose this house and my status and stuff like that, is because of external appearances. Like, yes, I do want a safe place for my family to be. Um, and honestly, I want a bigger house, but I mean, I would love to say that it's not because of external. It's because of intrinsic value, and like, especially with us being a family of four now, having more space and being able to do
Right.
so. There is some practicality to it, but at the same time, you know, you have to understand that once you obtain a certain status, like, you do everything to defend that position. And like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are what they're experiencing now, and especially during this pandemic, is they are losing sort of positions of stature, and that's humbling, man. That's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely humbling, and it's hard. Um, and so, if you're not sort of used to, I think I was listening to Charlemagne and said, like, you know, the people who are going to thrive through this are the people who are already used to not having anything, like the poor people who are used to eating the fried bologna sandwiches and poking the hole and
Yeah.
putting it on the 99-cent white
Right.
Wonder Bread or whatever. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? They're used to eating
Right.
bologna sandwiches and drinking Kool
Right.
Aid or whatever, you know. And so, but then you have people who have gotten to a certain level, they have a Benz and they have this stuff. Can't imagine going back and
Mm-hmm.
asking for help and being humbled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%, man. And it's like, you know, it's funny because, you know, one of the guys who both you and me, you know, we watch quite often is Gary V.
Mm,
And it was funny because, like, you know, in the time that I've been watching Gary V, he's been predicting this. You know what I'm saying? Like, going back to a couple of years ago, he's been, you know, predicting a time that, um, you know, people are going to be so used to winning and, you know, having and being able to go on vacation and snap pictures and do this, you know, being able to stunt for the gram. And he was like, yo, there's going to come a time where everything is going to go down and people are not going to be able to you know, stunt for the gram anymore. And they're going to have a really hard time,
hmm
you know? So, you know, a lot of it, like you said, it goes to ego. And I think there's, you know, if you find your self-worth or your value in all of these external things, then, you know, yeah, you're going to have a hard time when you have to sacrifice some of those things, when you have to give up some of those things or let go of some of those things because you can't afford them anymore. You know what I
hmm
mean? Like, you've allowed these things to define your own self, your own self-worth. But if your self-worth comes from within, then regardless of what's going on the outside, you're going to be, you know, you're going to be pretty stable in that piece.
Yeah, and think of how ingrained that is in us, and I guess uh, like to where it goes down to where we make like I said, we play video games, so we make the Minecrafts. We also make the Sims, like because in the Sims, like you have to have a computer game or Roller Coaster Tycoon. You have to build the biggest, baddest theme park and like make the most
Mm-hmm.
money at your theme park. Like so, we
Mm-hmm.
create these games to create environments to hit the same dopamine centers that the Instagram and social media, but then also the achievements in life give you. Like you get these dopamine hits whenever you achieve something, or you have
Yeah.
um, you get a compliment for maybe something you
Yeah.
have, like a car. Oh man, your house is
Yeah.
so whatever. It's the biggest whatever, and you get these compliments. You get these
Right.
dopamine hits. So we're constantly conditioned to be triggered by them. Like, and so much so that we, like I said, we create video games to create these environments.
Like constantly chasing the next high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the limitless pill.
Right. But I mean, that's to to go back to what you were saying about all of this stuff kind of playing into the ego. The ego is never satisfied. You know what I mean? Its appetite is endless. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll never get to a point to where your ego has had enough uh, of you feeding it. You know what I mean? So that it kind of goes to me. It's like your ego versus your ego versus your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's kind of never going to be full enough. You're never going to be able to give it enough compliments, give it enough money, give it enough attention. But your spirit, at some point, it finds a place of contentment. You know what I mean? To where it's like, if I don't need anything else, so I'm satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's completely valid. I never thought about separating the ego from the spirit, but I think the spirit is humbled, more humbled by things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easier for you to find that self-actualization where the ego is kind of that screaming kid who just wants more.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's a very good point. Um, so with that, I think we can sort of wrap up and both agree. We talked about that it is it's a balance. Like it's probably and you let me know if you agree, but I think that it's I would say that it's 75% learned because you think of the impressionable years of a child is from like 3 to 18, I think. And I was just watching this thing that was talking about like children have plasticity, and so their minds are malleable, and so you can make these mistakes. But then within the age range where they're sort of impressionable, you can back these mistakes up a little bit and like course correct. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would, like I said, I would say that they are 75% learned, but then the 25% is just something that like um, that is just kind of like an ego. Like everybody has an ego, and so they're kind of born with it, and they have these even before they're able to vocalize it, they have these personality, these characteristic things that they're trying to sift through.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier years is probably a lot to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still, like I said, still trying to work through it. All right, so you might have caught a little bit of Ramon was saying. He agreed with me. The 75-25. We're having some technical difficulties at this point. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Simple Dad podcast. I'm your host again at Quincy Forte across all channels. We're at the Simple Dad Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And then Mr. Ramon is the Urban Advocate at across all socials. You can't hear him; he's miming right now. So yeah, so thank y'all for tuning in. All the stuff will be linked down below. If you liked what you heard today, go ahead and like and subscribe, share with a friend, and we will see y'all next week.